So Maxwell Oba, and I'm excited to have you on today's episode on Lead with Scripture. I hope your week has been good. Thank you from wherever you're joining me, whether you're joining me on Facebook, whether you're joining me on Twitter or X, or whether you're joining me on YouTube. I'd like to welcome you, especially for those that have kept faith with me. So if you're here on the call this morning, it'll be nice to just say hello and greet you specially once again. This is Lead with Scripture. What do? We take the Bible and we extract leadership principles, because I believe that the Bible is not just a history book, it's a book about the human condition and the human affairs and God's solution for the human condition. Thank you, Lawrence, for joining me from Facebook. So every aspect of your life has a principle covered in the Bible. Thank you, Roland. Thank you. Every aspect. So what we're doing with Lead with Scripture is looking at leadership from the Bible. You could use the Bible for marriage, you could use the Bible for finances, you could use the Bible for different topics, but we're just looking at the concept of leadership. Thank you, Pastor Blessing, from YouTube and Roland. So we are looking at understanding leadership, and the subtitle today is, Daniel, thank you, is the Leadership Multiplier. That's the subtitle today. And the text we've been using in the last 4 weeks is the book of Second Kings. And is it Second Kings or First Kings 12 and 4? Second Kings 12:4. And what it says is that they said to Solomon, they said to Rehoboam, your father made our life heavy, our yoke heavy. And I said here that this is the greatest indictment. Thank you, Mr. Anoze, for joining me. This is the greatest indictment that a leader can have, when the people say that your presence has made our situation worse, has made our lives worse. So you say your father made our yoke heavy, now therefore lighten. So we see two aspects of leadership: those that make the yoke heavy, and those that make it light. That's the two aspects. Some leaders would destroy potential, while others would elevate performance. So thank you, Mrs. Anoze, for joining me. So this morning, I want to talk about the leadership multiplier. But before I go into that, I would like to remind you of the 3 things I said last week that great leaders do. He said here, now lighten the burdensome service is that number 1, you must understand people's pains. Number 2, you must lighten their load, remove the obstacles, simplify the complex. And number 3, you must make it easier for people to succeed. So I want to build on making it easier for people to succeed, because the true test of leadership is that people become better under your leadership. That's the true test of leadership, is that people, and when I mean people, I mean the generality of people. It's not everybody that the leader can change. Jesus had 12 disciples. One was a traitor and a betrayer. So sometimes it's not everybody that the leader can change, but the generality of people can become better as a result of the leader's presence. How are you making it easier? So if you are the CEO of organization, make it easier for the organization and the people you lead to succeed. If you are the governor of a state, make it easier for the citizens to succeed. Same with the president of a nation. So the leadership multiplier here says that leaders are like catalysts. You know what they do? A catalyst come in and they speeding up the reaction. That's what a catalyst does. It makes it easier for that reaction to happen faster. And you see that in developed economies. They've created an environment where it's easier for the people in that nation to succeed. They've an enabling environment for the people to succeed. So this morning, I want to show you one equation that just one slide is what I have today. And that's where we're going to spend all our time talking about. So we see here that leaders create impact by doing 2 things. They develop people and they drive performance. So the 2 aspects and to leadership is first is people. Leadership is all about people. Nothing else matters. People. David came to that conclusion that God has elevated him to the position of king because of the children of Israel. So the first and foremost is that leadership. The first thing I want you to remember here, that leadership is about people. Any leadership that is divorced, separated, disconnected from people is the leadership that would fail. So in the people part, what do leaders do? They invest in their people. They invest in their people. They understand that if they don't invest in their people, it's like sowing seed. You cannot claim a harvest if you've not planted seed and tended that seed. What we see today in the African leadership space are leaders who wants to extract value. You tax your people heavily, but you have not invested in creating an enabling environment for them to succeed. Everywhere you turn is an increased taxation everywhere you turn. So first thing first is that you need to invest in your people. And in investing in your people, you need to build their character. You teach them, you build their character. You tell them about principles of punctuality, integrity, excellence. You build their character on one hand. The second also is that you develop their capability. So in that case, the leader is both a role model and a coach. So role modeling deals with character development. So you role model. Jesus said, follow me. You understand, and I will make you. So that's the first thing you say. You make them, you mold them, you role model the behaviors that you want them to exhibit. And as a coach, notice so many times when the disciples will be arguing who is the greatest, he will take a child and will say, anybody that receives the kingdom like a child is the greatest in the kingdom. That's a coach who was teaching them the principles of leadership. So that's the first part. The leader must invest in his people. 3.5 years of working with the disciples, leadership is about investing in people. And at the end of the day, you inspire commitment. Of course, when you've trained them, you've invested in their development, then you want them to be committed to the things that are important. People is the first part. A leader that doesn't like people, that doesn't have compassion for people, that is not moved by people's pain, that sees people as a nuisance and not as an asset, will be somebody that would never make a great leader. He might be a dictator at the end of the day, but he will never be a great leader. The second part is, after you've invested in people, at the end of the day, one of the greatest motivations in the human spirit is the desire to win. One of the greatest motivation in the human spirit is the desire to win. Is the reason why some people follow celebrities. Is the reason for those of us that are football fans, we support clubs that have a tendency to win. Before now, the most popular clubs in Nigeria, like 25 years ago, are the Arsenal, the Kanwankwo Arsenal, those days, you understand, the Liverpool and the Manchester United. Then when Abramovich bought into Chelsea and Chelsea started winning, the Chelsea fans started springing up in Nigeria. Then when the Abu Dhabi group bought into Man City fans, right now, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, you hardly saw a Man City fan in Nigeria, maybe Cameroon and across Africa. But right now, you see a lot of Man City fans. There's always that desire is there in the human spirit. And what leaders do is that they harness that desire. How do they harness it? By doing what is called performance management. So they set clear goals. This is what we want to achieve. They set clear goals. They monitor. They execute with excellence. They provide the feedback that is necessary. So when their team members are not doing well, leaders do not just overlook it and said it doesn't matter. You are not helping the people if you also do not focus on performance management. Performance management is one aspect of leadership that you must drive performance. And one way to do that is what we've written here: set goals, monitor, measure, reward. If you summarize what performance management is in that four bucket. You set the goals. The goals tells us what as a leader you want to achieve. Then it's one thing to set the goals. You must monitor. How are they achieving it? Are they achieving it? And that's, as you monitor, you measure. You need to measure what matters. And finally, you need to reward. And in rewarding, so between that monitoring and measuring, you give feedback, corrective feedback. No, you need to correct this. No, you need to go in this direction. No, this is not right. And you reward. And the reward must be discriminatory. What I mean by that is that you don't give everybody the same reward. The person who achieves an A and the person who came out with a C will not get the same reward. They can get the same basic salary, but in terms of performance bonuses, it should not be the same, because if you do that, you will demotivate the A performer and you will not even motivate the C performer. So that's what leaders do. And by focusing on people and driving performance, they create lasting impact. The people, the organization, the generation, the community, the state becomes better at the end of the day. I've been traveling for the last 3 weeks to a particular state where the governor has focused solely on youth, and the people I've been addressing are between 16 to 24 years old, young people, and I'm teaching the concept of personal leadership to them. That is a leader who is focused on people, to develop his people for the future, because the value or the contribution of this investment will not be seen immediately. Some of them are still in secondary school. Some of them they've not even entered university, but the governor is intentional. I need to develop these people for the next generation. That, in summary, is what leaders do. They invest in people and they drive performance. So now that brings me to 4 classes of leaders. Guys, are you people following me? I just want to be sure that I've been speaking and speaking and speaking. Now, from this, we can draw different types of leaders. There, on one side, you can have somebody that is a friend. A friend just focuses on you. You understand? A friend perhaps builds character. You understand? If you work with the wise, you become wise. If you work with the wise, so you have people who they're just focused on your friendship and the relational aspect without being focused on performance. So they're very nice, they're very patient, they're very gentle, they're very kind, but performance suffers. That is not leadership. So leadership is not just being friendly with people. Yes, you should be friendly with people, but remember, at the end of the day, you need to drive performance. Then at one, so you can have it at 2 extremes. One extreme just focuses on the relational part. The other extreme just focuses on results. Get me the result. It doesn't matter how you get the result. Whether you are burnt out or not is none of my business. So they are intolerant to people's mistakes. They don't understand the plight of their people. I am not interested. Just get me the result. At that extreme, we can call that a traditional boss. We understand, traditional high tension boss. The word boss is not a crime. Boss in the language of business is just somebody that's your superior. But in this context, let's look at the boss as somebody who is just focused on result, and not just on even you as an individual. So you achieve result, but you are burnt out in the process. So a leader balances both. So a leader knows when to be close to his people and when to separate himself from his people, and says, no, this is totally unacceptable in this team. In my team, I will not tolerate poor performance and the rest. If there's anything you need me to do for you, I'm going to do that. This is what leadership is. And by doing this, they multiply performance. They multiply it to such an extent that, wow, the organization, the team, the nation becomes better. The final thing I'd like to say here, as I talked about the leadership multiplier, is that the base determines the final output. What do I mean? So if I multiply 1 by 10, what I get is 10. So which is fantastic. It has increased, multiply 1 by 10. But if I multiply 9 by 10, now what I get is 90. You can see the multiplication effect is the same as by 10, but the base determines that effect of the end result. What am I saying here also? So I just want to put a caveat here, because sometimes you think that a leader will not transform a lizard to becoming an alligator. You know what I mean? So in the multiplying effect, the people also has responsibility to play. The starting point, the base, are you a 1, are you a 7, or are you a 10? It determines the final effect that you see. Because I've seen that as a leadership coach, I used to think that leaders can change people's life, but I have come to realize also that the people have responsibility to play. If you're a 2, the leader can still multiply, but if you're a 9, then you now see, wow, the multiplying effect is great. But at the end of the day, whether you're a 1 or a 2 or a 5 or a 10, if you come in contact with a great leader, you actually become far better than you are. So leaders create impact by developing people and driving performance. The question I like to ask you here as I bring this to a close is, who are you invested in the growth, in helping that person to grow and develop? And who are you pushing to drive performance in the life of that person? So that is what makes you a leader. Go this week and look for somebody in your team, look for somebody in your organization, and say, I'm going to take you as my own personal investment, and whatever I need to do to make sure you become better, I'm going to invest myself into you to produce a better version of who you are meant to be. My name is Dr. Maxwell Uba. Thank you for joining me for today's episode. We'll be here by God's grace, God's willing, next week, Saturday, again. I just want to say one more thing. The last thing I want to say here is that if this episode was a blessing to you, you learned something to it, please subscribe to the YouTube channel, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and share this, whether on Facebook, on YouTube, and on X. Please share this, and very soon we'll be starting a leadership cohort, perhaps on WhatsApp, very soon, where we'll just take the extract of this and we'll send you quotes every day, or every twice or 3 times in a week, so that it just keeps you in that spirit, in that mood of leadership, very soon. But as you subscribe and follow, more details will be provided. God bless you. Do have a great weekend, and see you next week by His grace.